She wanted an adventure play. I made it unforgettable, especially that romantic evening on the toilet.
I'm a 34-year-old guy, been living in the same suburban neighborhood for almost a decade now. Got a decent job as a project manager for a logistics company. Nothing fancy, but it pays the bills and then some. I was married for 7 years to a woman I'm going to call Rachel, though that's not her real name. We met in our 20s, did the whole dating thing for 3 years, got married in this beautiful outdoor ceremony that honestly felt like something out of a movie. Life was good, or at least I thought it was. Rachel worked in marketing for a tech startup, one of those companies that's always talking about disruption and innovation and other corporate buzzwords that don't mean anything. She traveled a lot for work, probably twice a month minimum, going to conferences and client meetings all over the country. I never really thought much about it because that was just her job, right? She'd come back with stories about boring presentations and overpriced hotel food, and I'd listen and nod and ask the appropriate questions. Looking back now, I realize how many signs I missed, how many little red flags I just explained away because I trusted her, because I loved her, because I'm apparently an idiot who doesn't notice when his wife is planning to cheat on him. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you about the night everything changed. It was a Tuesday about 2 in the morning. I've always been a light sleeper, which my wife used to joke about all the time. She could sleep through a tornado while I'd wake up if someone 3 houses down slammed a car door. That night, what woke me up was this steady dripping sound coming from the kitchen. Our faucet had been acting up for weeks, and I kept meaning to fix it, but you know how it is with home repairs. You always think you'll get to it eventually. Except this night, the dripping was so rhythmic and so loud that it felt like someone was tapping directly on my skull. Drip, drip, drip. Each one perfectly spaced, perfectly annoying. Rachel was sleeping next to me, completely undisturbed, breathing deeply with her mouth slightly open. She looked so peaceful. If peace had a face, it would have been hers in that moment. Meanwhile, I was lying there, grinding my teeth, feeling my blood pressure rise with every drop. Finally, I threw off the covers and got up. The floor was cold under my bare feet, and I stubbed my toe on the dresser in the dark, which didn't improve my mood. I pulled on some sweatpants and a t-shirt and shuffled toward the kitchen, already dreading the process of getting under the sink at 2 in the morning. The kitchen smelled like the Chinese food we'd had for dinner, which was still sitting in the trash can. The dripping was even louder in there, echoing off the tile and the stainless steel appliances. I grabbed my toolbox from the garage, the one I inherited from my dad, along with his tendency to fix things himself, instead of calling a professional. Found my wrench, got down on the floor, and opened the cabinet under the sink. That's when I saw Rachel's travel bag sitting on the counter. Normally, I wouldn't have paid attention to it, but it was open, the contents visible from where I was crouched. I could see her usual travel stuff, makeup bag, phone charger, her work badge on a lanyard, some protein bars she always packed for flights. Standard business trip supplies. Then my eyes landed on something that made my brain completely stop working. A pink plastic case, the kind that holds prescription pills. Birth control pills, specifically. I recognized the packaging because Rachel had been on birth control for years before we decided to have kids. Here's the thing that made my blood run cold. I had a vasectomy. Not recently either. 14 months ago, actually. We'd decided after our second kid that we were done having children, and I'd volunteered to get snipped because it seemed easier than having Rachel deal with IUDs or pills or whatever. The whole procedure was straightforward, just a quick outpatient thing. I remember making dumb jokes with the doctor because I use humor to cope with uncomfortable situations. Rachel had been there with me, holding my hand, being supportive, telling me it was just a precaution and we'd be fine. So why the hell would she need birth control pills if my swimmers were permanently out of commission? I just sat there under the sink, wrench in hand, staring at that little pink case like it was a bomb about to go off. My first thought was maybe they're old. Maybe she just hasn't thrown them away. It's a reasonable explanation, right? People hold on to medications sometimes, but something in my gut told me to check. I reached out and picked up the case, my hands surprisingly steady despite the adrenaline suddenly pumping through my system. Opened it. One pill was missing from the first row, which meant she was actively taking them. I turned the case over to look at the label on the back, and that's when my stomach really dropped. Prescription filled 3 weeks ago. Brand new. Her name, her doctor, the date stamped right there in black and white. I don't think I breathed for a full minute. Just sat there on the kitchen floor, holding this tiny piece of plastic that had just blown up my entire understanding of my marriage. The faucet was still dripping above me, but I couldn't hear it anymore, over the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. My brain started going through possibilities like shuffling through cards. Maybe she's taking them for hormonal reasons. Women do that sometimes, right? For acne or irregular periods or something. That's possible, but then why wouldn't she have mentioned it? We talked about everything, at least I thought we did. Or maybe the dark voice in the back of my head whispered, maybe she's taking them because she's planning to sleep with someone who can still get her pregnant. I very carefully put the pills back exactly where I found them, making sure everything looked untouched. Then I finished fixing the faucet, which took all of 5 minutes once I tightened the right connection. The dripping stopped. The silence that followed felt enormous, oppressive. I cleaned up my tools, put everything away, and stood in that dark kitchen for a long time, just thinking. Eventually, I went back to bed. Rachel hadn't moved, still sleeping soundly, completely unaware that her husband had just discovered something that would change everything. I lay there next to her, staring at the ceiling, and I didn't sleep at all for the rest of the night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those pills. Over the next few days, I started paying attention, really paying attention, in ways I hadn't before. And suddenly, things that had seemed normal started looking suspicious as hell. Like the fact that Rachel had bought a whole new wardrobe over the past few months. She said it was for work, that she needed to look more professional. But these weren't just professional clothes. These were expensive, stylish outfits that she'd model for me sometimes, asking if they made her look good. I'd always said yes because she did look good, but now I wondered who she was really dressing up for. She'd also started going to the gym a lot more, like 5 times a week instead of her usual 2 or 3. Said she wanted to get in shape, feel better about herself. I'd encouraged it, even offered to go with her sometimes, but she always said she preferred going alone. Now that seemed less about personal preference and more about maintaining privacy. And her phone. God, her phone. It was always face down on the table, always. If I walked into a room when she was texting, she'd casually close out of whatever she was looking at. If I asked who she was talking to, she'd say just work stuff or Sarah from the office. Nothing suspicious on its own, but added up with everything else, it painted a picture. Then there was the way she talked about her work trips. She'd come back exhausted, sure, but there was something else, too. An energy, almost like excitement. She'd be tired, but also somehow more alive, more animated when talking about the conferences. And one name kept coming up more than any other, Derek. Derek was apparently a consultant who worked with her company. She'd mentioned him a few months back, said he was brilliant, that he was mentoring her on career development. She'd light up when she talked about him, about his innovative ideas and creative approaches to marketing strategy. At the time, I just thought she was enthusiastic about work. Now I realized she was enthusiastic about him. I started cataloging everything in my head. The new clothes, the gym obsession, the phone secrecy. The way she said Derek's name with a little uptick in her voice, like it brought her joy just to talk about him. The business trips that left her glowing instead of drained. And of course, the birth control pills that she had no legitimate reason to be taking. Rachel had another conference coming up in 2 weeks. Seattle this time. 3 days of panels and networking and whatever else happens at these corporate events. She was excited about it, kept talking about the agenda and the speakers she wanted to see. And yes, Derek was going. Of course Derek was going. They were apparently doing some joint presentation together on marketing funnels or customer engagement or some other BS I stopped listening to. That's when I decided I needed concrete evidence. I couldn't just confront her based on suspicions and a pack of pills. I needed to know for sure what was happening. So I called my buddy Tyler. Tyler and I went to college together, pledged the same fraternity, been friends for over a decade. He works in IT now, specifically in cybersecurity, and he has some skills that exist in a legal gray area. I've never asked him to do anything questionable before, but this felt like an emergency. I met him at a bar near his office, and I laid out the whole situation. The pills, the behavior changes, the Derek situation. Tyler listened, drinking his beer and nodding, and when I finished, he just looked at me seriously and said, "You sure you want to do this? Once you start looking, you can't unsee what you find." I need to know. Told him that I can't keep living like this, wondering if I'm paranoid or if my instincts are right. He nodded slowly. "All right, I can set you up with email tracking on her work account." You'll be able to see everything she sends and receives. When she opens emails, the whole deal. It's not exactly legal, but it's also not exactly illegal if you're on the same cell phone plan. Gray area. How gray are we talking? Gray enough that I'm doing it for you, but wouldn't recommend you tell your lawyer about it later. We set it up that night. Tyler worked his magic with some software I didn't understand, and within an hour, I had access to Rachel's work email through some kind of tracking dashboard. It felt invasive as hell, like I was becoming the kind of person I'd always judged. But I was also past caring about propriety when my wife was apparently keeping secrets that required birth control. The first few emails were normal. Work stuff, scheduling meetings, discussing project timelines. But then I started seeing the ones between her and Derek, and my stomach sank all over again. They started professional enough. Thanks for your input on the presentation and looking forward to collaborating on this project. But as I scrolled through the history, going back weeks and months, the tone shifted, became more personal, more intimate. There was one from Derek that said, "You always know how to brighten my day. Can't wait to see you at the conference." Rachel's response, "The feeling is mutual. These trips are the highlight of my schedule." Another exchange where Derek wrote, "Last conference was unforgettable. Let's make Seattle even better." Rachel replied with a winky face emoji, and I'm counting on it. Nothing explicitly sexual, at least not in what I could see. But you don't need explicit language to understand subtext. The emotional affair was crystal clear, and I'd bet my house that it had either already turned physical or was about to. I spent hours going through those emails, taking screenshots of the worst ones, feeling sicker with each exchange. My wife, the woman I'd been with for 10 years, was having an affair, or at the very least, was planning to. And she'd been lying to my face for months, maybe longer. That night, after I'd compiled enough evidence to convince myself I wasn't crazy, I sat in my car in our driveway for 20 minutes before going inside. Just sat there, hands on the steering wheel, trying to process the fact that my marriage was over, because there was no coming back from this. Even if nothing physical had happened yet, the betrayal was already complete. She'd emotionally checked out and attached herself to someone else and was actively planning to escalate things. When I finally went inside, Rachel was in the living room watching TV. She smiled when she saw me, this warm, genuine smile, and said, "Hey babe, how was drinks with Tyler?" "Good," I said, forcing myself to smile back. "He's doing well, and that's great. I made pasta for dinner if you're hungry." I wasn't hungry. I felt like I might never be hungry again, but I said, "Thanks, maybe in a bit," and went upstairs to our bedroom. Sat on the edge of our bed, the bed we'd shared for 7 years, and tried to figure out what to do next. I could confront her now, show her the emails, demand an explanation, let everything explode. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the investigator in me wanting to gather more evidence. Maybe it was the part of me that wanted her to suffer the way I was suffering. Or maybe I just wanted to be absolutely certain before I burned everything down. That's when the idea hit me. It was petty, sure. Probably vindictive. Definitely not the mature way to handle things. But in that moment, sitting there with screenshots of my wife's affair on my phone, I didn't feel particularly mature. I felt angry and hurt and like I needed to take back some kind of control. Rachel was leaving for Seattle in 12 days. She'd already packed her bag, had it sitting in the closet half-zipped. And in that bag were her birth control pills, the ones she was taking to protect herself while she screwed around with Derek. What if those pills weren't birth control anymore? I spent the next day researching and found out that certain laxatives come in small pink pills that look almost identical to birth control. The pharmaceutical industry apparently has a limited color palette. I read reviews, checked dosages, made sure I wasn't going to actually hurt her beyond some severe digestive distress. Because yeah, I wanted revenge, but I'm not a monster. I just wanted her to experience a fraction of the discomfort she'd put me through. The day before her trip, I went to 3 different pharmacies. Didn't want to buy all the laxatives from one place and have the pharmacist remember the weird guy stockpiling digestive medication. At the first one, I told the clerk it was for a prank video. At the second, I said my elderly father was constipated. At the third, I just put them on the counter without explanation and the cashier didn't ask. By the end of my pharmacy tour, I had 9 boxes of maximum strength laxatives in pink pill form. I felt ridiculous driving around town buying laxatives like some kind of revenge-obsessed weirdo. But I also felt like I was finally doing something, taking action instead of just absorbing the hurt. That evening, Rachel went to the gym. Her usual routine, gone for 90 minutes. I waited until her car pulled out of the driveway, gave it 5 more minutes to be safe, then went to work. I put on latex gloves, which seemed insane but also necessary. Went to the closet and pulled out her travel bag. Found the pink compact with her birth control pills tucked in the side pocket. My hands were shaking slightly as I opened it, but I forced myself to stay calm. Methodical. Each birth control pill came out easily. I lined them up on the bathroom counter like little pink soldiers. Then I replaced each one with a laxative pill, making sure they went back in the exact same positions. The match wasn't perfect up close, but it was close enough that she'd never notice unless she was specifically looking for a problem. And why would she be? When I finished, I had a row of birth control pills on the counter and a compact full of laxatives in my hand. I snapped the case shut, put it back in her bag exactly where I'd found it, and flushed the real pills down the toilet. Cleaned up any evidence, took off the gloves, and sat down on the bathroom floor for a minute, processing what I'd just done. It felt surreal, like I'd just committed some kind of ridiculous crime. But I'd also felt this dark satisfaction, knowing that Rachel's romantic Seattle getaway was about to turn into a digestive nightmare. She wanted to sneak around and lie? Fine, then let's see how sexy she felt when she couldn't get off the toilet. Rachel came home from the gym glowing and energized. Took a shower, made dinner, chatted about her day. She mentioned the conference, said she was excited but also nervous about the presentation. Derek's been so helpful in preparing, she said, and I had to grip my fork tighter to keep from saying something. That's great, I managed. Sounds like he's a good mentor. The best, she said, smiling. I'm really lucky to work with him. Lucky, right. That night, as we were getting ready for bed, she grabbed her travel bag to do a final check, pulled out the pill compact, glanced at it, and nodded to herself. Almost forgot to pack these, she said casually. Wouldn't want to forget those, I said, and she had no idea how much meaning was packed into that sentence. She kissed me goodnight, told me she loved me, and curled up against me like everything was normal. Like she wasn't planning to cheat on me in less than 24 hours. I lay there in the dark, her breathing evening out as she fell asleep, and I felt absolutely nothing. No love, no affection, just this cold certainty that our marriage was already over. The next morning, Rachel was up early, excited energy crackling off her. She'd laid out her outfit the night before, one of those new expensive dresses she'd bought. Navy blue, professional, but also flattering. The kind of thing you wear when you want to look good for someone specific. I made coffee while she finished getting ready, and we had this painfully normal domestic scene. Her telling me about the conference schedule, me pretending to care, both of us playing our roles perfectly. My flight's at 9, she said, checking her phone. Car should be here in 20 minutes. Hope it's a good trip, I said, and I meant it. Just not in the way she thought. When her Uber arrived, I walked her to the door with her suitcase. She kissed me, a quick peck that felt rehearsed, and said, I'll miss you. Miss you too, I lied. I watched her car pull away, stood in the doorway until it turned to the corner and disappeared. Then I went back inside, poured myself another cup of coffee, and waited. The conference started that afternoon. Rachel texted me a picture of her hotel room view, some generic skyline shot. Made it safely. Room is nice. Miss you already. I replied with a simple, glad you got there okay, and went about my day. I was supposed to be working, had a project deadline coming up, but I couldn't focus. Instead, I kept refreshing the email tracker Tyler had set up, watching Rachel's correspondence come through in real time. She sent a few work emails, nothing interesting. Then, around 4 p.m. Pacific time, one came through from Derek. Dinner tonight? Found an incredible seafood place near the waterfront. Just us, my treat. Rachel's response came 2 minutes later. Sounds perfect, can't wait. Just us. Not a group thing, not a team dinner. Just the two of them. I actually laughed out loud, sitting there at my kitchen table. Seafood. She was going to load up on seafood while those laxatives worked through her system. The universe had a sense of humor. I texted Tyler immediately. It's happening, she's having dinner with him tonight. He replied, and you're sure about those pills? Positive, swapped them yesterday. Dude, you're either a genius or a psychopath. Can't I be both? He sent back a skull emoji and then, keep me posted. This is better than reality TV. The waiting was torture. I tried to watch TV but couldn't focus. Tried to read, but the words just blurred together. Finally, around 8 p.m. my time, which would be 6 p.m. in Seattle, I just sat on the couch with my phone, hitting refresh on the email tracker every few minutes, like a crazy person. At 8:41 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Just 2 words. Rough night. I stared at those 2 words for a solid minute before I started laughing. Not a normal laugh, either. The kind of laugh that comes from somewhere dark and vindictive, the kind that would probably concern a therapist. I laughed until my sides hurt, until tears ran down my face, until the neighbor's dog started barking because I was being too loud. Rough night. That was all she could manage. No details, no explanation, just an admission that things were not going according to plan. I composed myself enough to text back, "Everything okay?" No response. Nothing for the rest of the night. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. Woke up refreshed, made myself a full breakfast, eggs and bacon and toast, the whole thing. I was humming while I cooked, feeling lighter than I had in months. Tyler called around 10 a.m. "So," he asked immediately, "what happened?" "She texted me last night, said it was a rough night." "That's it? That's all she said? That's all she needed to say?" She was probably too busy redecorating the hotel bathroom to elaborate. Tyler lost it. I could hear him wheezing with laughter on the other end. "Oh my God, you actually did it. You actually ruined her affair with laxatives." I prefer to think of it as providing natural consequences for unnatural behavior. "You're insane, and I love it." By that afternoon, Rachel's company had posted photos from the conference on their social media. Professional shots of people in business clothes, smiling and networking, and pretending to enjoy themselves. I scrolled through them looking for Rachel and found her in the background of one photo. She looked terrible. Pale, exhausted, clutching a water bottle like it was the only thing keeping her alive. Her hair was pulled back messily, and even from a distance you could see the strain on her face. Meanwhile, everyone around her looked fresh and energetic. The comments section was full of coworkers being supportive. "Feel better, Rachel," and "Hope you're okay," and "You're such a trooper for sticking it out." One comment from someone named Jennifer said, "Girl, you need to rest. We'll handle the presentation without you." So she was sick enough that people were telling her to skip work obligations. Perfect. Derek had posted a photo too, a selfie with a couple of other conference attendees. He looked uncomfortable, smile forced. The caption was something generic about professional development and networking opportunities. No mention of Rachel, which was interesting. Their romantic dinner had apparently not gone as planned. I screenshot everything. The photos, the comments, the timestamps. Not because I needed more evidence, but because I wanted to document this. My wife's grand affair, derailed by her own lying husband and some strategic pharmaceutical sabotage. That evening, Rachel called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hey," she said, her voice weak and rough. "Hey yourself, how's the conference?" "Honestly, awful. I've been so sick, Jake. I don't know what happened, but I've never felt this bad." "That's terrible," I said, injecting just enough concern to sound believable. "Must have been something you ate." "Maybe. I had seafood last night, and I've been paying for it ever since." Derek felt so bad he's been checking on me all day. Derek felt bad. How touching. "Well, hopefully it passes soon," I said. "These things usually run their course in a day or two." "God, I hope so. I'm supposed to do the presentation tomorrow, and I don't know if I can stand in front of people for an hour." "Maybe you should rest. Your health is more important than a presentation." "I know, but I don't want to let the team down, especially Derek. He's been so supportive." I had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing. I'm sure he has. We talked for a few more minutes, Rachel complaining about her symptoms in detail I absolutely did not need before she said she had to go. "I'm sorry, I just need to lie down." "Take care of yourself," I said, and hung up. The thing about laxatives is that they don't just work once. They keep working as long as you keep taking them. And Rachel, diligent person that she was, took her birth control pill every morning like clockwork, which meant every morning she was redosing herself with maximum strength laxatives. Day 2 of the conference, the company posted more photos. Rachel wasn't in any of them. The schedule showed she'd missed the morning sessions and the afternoon panel she was supposed to moderate. Derek had to run the presentation alone, and from what I could see in the comments, it hadn't gone great. "Missed having Rachel's perspective," someone wrote. "Hope she recovers soon." That night, Rachel texted, "Still not feeling better. Doctor says might be a stomach virus, so embarrassing." I replied, "Not your fault if you're sick. Don't push yourself too hard." She sent back a heart emoji. which felt ironic given that her heart clearly belonged to Derek now. Day 3, the final day of the conference. I woke up to an email in the tracker. Rachel had sent a message to her boss explaining that she needed to miss the closing session and asking if she could work remotely for the rest of the week. The email was apologetic, almost desperate. She referenced the presentation she'd missed, said she'd make it up, promised to be available for any follow-up needed. Another message came through, this one from Derek to Rachel. Feel better, let me know when you're back in the office. We should debrief about the conference. Rachel's response, definitely, sorry I missed so much. Thanks for covering for me. That was it. No flirtation, no winky faces, no secret plans, just professional distance and disappointment. Whatever they'd been planning, it hadn't happened. The affair had been stopped cold by some pink pills and my willingness to be petty. Rachel came home 2 days later on a Friday afternoon. I'd taken the day off work, made sure the house was clean, wanted everything to seem normal. When her car pulled into the driveway, I watched from the window as she slowly got out, moving carefully like everything hurt. She looked awful, had lost weight, her face was gaunt, eyes sunken. She dragged her suitcase up the driveway like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I opened the door before she got to it. Welcome home. Thanks, she said quietly, and just stood there for a moment like she was gathering strength to come inside. I took her suitcase and she shuffled to the couch and collapsed. I've never been so happy to be home. Rough trip? You have no idea. I spent 3 days basically living in my hotel room. It was humiliating. Everyone at work saw me fall apart. I'm sorry, I said, and part of me actually meant it. Must have been something you ate. She looked up at me, and for a second I thought she knew. Thought she'd figured it out, but then she just nodded. Must have been. I'm never eating seafood again. Over the next few days, Rachel recovered. Slowly, but she recovered. She stopped taking the birth control pills, so the laxatives worked their way out of her system. Her color came back. Her energy returned. But something else had changed too. She was quieter around me, less confident. The way she looked at me sometimes, it was like she was trying to figure something out but couldn't quite put the pieces together. I kept monitoring her emails. The correspondence with Derek had dropped off dramatically. A few professional messages here and there, but nothing personal. No more can't wait to see you or winky faces. The affair, if that's what it had been, seemed to have cooled. But I wasn't done. I couldn't just let this go, even though my revenge had technically succeeded. I needed her to know that I knew. Needed to confront her with the evidence and watch her try to explain it away. 2 weeks after Seattle, I decided it was time. It was a Sunday evening. Both of us home, nowhere to be. Rachel was on the couch with her laptop, probably working or scrolling social media. I'd been in the garage, pretending to organize tools, but really just gathering my courage for what I was about to do. I came inside, poured myself a glass of water, and sat down in the chair across from her. We need to talk. She looked up, and I saw immediate worry flash across her face. About what? I pulled out my phone, opened the screenshots I'd saved, and turned the screen toward her. About Derek. The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might pass out. She stared at the phone, at the email exchange showing on the screen, and I watched her try to process what she was seeing. What is that? She asked, but her voice was shaking. Your emails, all of them. Every message you've sent to Derek for the past 6 months. You hacked my email? She said, and there was anger there, but also fear. I verified what I already suspected, I said calmly, after I found your birth control pills. That hit her like a physical blow. Her mouth opened and closed, no sound coming out. Want to explain why you need birth control when I had a vasectomy? I asked. Because I'm really curious about the mental gymnastics required for that one. She started crying. Not the dignified kind of crying either, the ugly kind with gasping breaths and mascara running down her face. Jake, please, I can explain. Can you explain the affair? Because that's what this is, Rachel. You've been having an affair with Derek, or planning to, at minimum. I didn't sleep with him, she said quickly, desperately. I swear, nothing physical happened. Right. You just emotionally cheated and were planning to physically cheat at the conference. How'd that work out for you, by the way? Noticed you spent a lot of time in your hotel room. Her face crumpled. I was so sick. I don't know what happened. I've never been that sick in my life. I do know what happened, I said, and I kept my voice level, calm. Want to know why you got sick? She looked at me, confused through the tears. Those weren't birth control pills. I swapped them, replaced every single one with maximum strength laxatives. The silence that followed was absolute. She stared at me like I'd just told her I was an alien. Her brain was trying to process the information, and I could literally see the moment it clicked. Her expression shifted from confusion to horror to something that might have been rage or might have been disbelief or might have been both. "You did what?" she whispered. "You heard me. Every morning when you took your birth control, you were actually dosing yourself with laxatives. That's why you spent the entire conference with digestive issues. That's why your romantic dinner with Derek turned into a nightmare. That's why you couldn't do your presentation." "That's insane," she said, her voice rising. "That's actually psychotic. You could have really hurt me." "You did hurt me," I shot back. "You've been lying to my face for months, planning to screw around with your coworker, making me feel crazy for noticing that something was off. You hurt me. I just gave you some stomach cramps." She stood up, started pacing, hands shaking. "This isn't okay, Jake. This is not how you handle things. You don't sedate someone because you're suspicious. And you don't cheat on someone because you feel unseen or whatever excuse you're about to give me." We argued for over an hour. She tried every defense in the cheater's playbook. It was just an emotional connection. She'd been feeling neglected, and Derek made her feel important. Nothing physical had happened, so it wasn't really an affair. She was going to end it anyway. She never meant to hurt me. I shot down every excuse, showed her more screenshots, quoted her own words back to her. Watched her defenses crumble one by one until she was just sitting there, crying, admitting that she'd made a terrible mistake. "I don't want to lose you," she finally said, looking up at me with red, swollen eyes. "Please, Jake. I'll do anything. I'll quit my job. I'll never talk to Derek again. We can go to counseling." "I don't want to go to counseling," I said. "I want a divorce." You would have thought I'd slapped her. She physically recoiled, shaking her head. No, please don't do this. We can fix this. Marriages survive affairs all the time." "Maybe other marriages," I said. "Not ours. I'm done." She tried everything, begged, pleaded, promised she'd be different. But I was unmoved. I'd already talked to my lawyer friend, a woman named Lisa, who I'd helped out a few years back with some project management consulting. She owed me a favor, and this seemed like the time to cash it in. Lisa had started drafting separation papers as soon as I'd told her what was happening. She tried to talk me into couples therapy first, said I should at least try to save the marriage, but I told her there was nothing left to save. The woman I'd married, the woman I'd trusted, was gone. In her place was someone who could lie to my face while planning to cheat, and I had no interest in staying married to that person. That night, Rachel slept in the guest room, or tried to anyway. I could hear her crying through the walls, could hear her pacing around 2 a.m. Part of me wanted to feel bad for her, but I couldn't access that emotion anymore. It was like that part of me had just shut down completely. The divorce process took about 4 months, start to finish. Rachel moved out after 2 weeks, went to stay with her sister in the next state over while we sorted through everything. The separation papers got signed without much drama. She tried a few more times to convince me to reconsider, sent me long emails about how sorry she was and how she'd do anything to fix things. I never responded. The evidence I'd collected made it pretty straightforward to establish fault. Rachel's lawyer tried to argue that the email tracking was illegal and shouldn't be admissible. But Lisa pointed out that we were on the same phone plan, and I technically had access to the account. Gray area, like Tyler had said. Gray enough to make the emails stick. We divided assets more or less down the middle. I kept the house because I'd made the down payment before we got married. She kept her car and her retirement account. Neither of us wanted to drag things out, so we didn't fight over the small stuff. Just signed papers, transferred titles, and went our separate ways. Tyler asked me once if I regretted the laxative thing, if I thought maybe I'd gone too far, been too cruel. I thought about it for a while before answering. "No," I finally said, "I don't regret it." "Really? Not even a little?" She lied to me for months, made me feel crazy for noticing things were off. Was planning to cheat on me, might have already been cheating for all I know. The laxatives didn't come close to matching the emotional damage she did. Fair enough, but still, man, it's pretty hardcore. Yeah, well, I'm a pretty hardcore guy when someone betrays me. He laughed at that. Remind me never to piss you off. The house feels different now without Rachel in it. Quieter, obviously, but in a good way. There's no more wondering where she is or who she's texting. No more pretending everything's fine while anxiety eats away at my stomach. No more lying awake at night replaying conversations and trying to figure out what was real and what was BS. I've started dating again, though I'm taking it slow. Tyler set me up with someone from his gym, a woman named Michelle, who seems nice and normal and honest. We've been on a few dates, nothing serious yet, but it's nice to feel like I can trust someone again, even if that trust is cautious and guarded in ways it never was before. The whole experience taught me a lot about people, about relationships, about myself. I learned that you can spend years with someone and not really know them, that people are capable of incredible deception when they want something badly enough, that trust, once broken, can't be super glued back together no matter how many therapy sessions you attend. I also learned that I'm capable of things I never thought I'd do. The guy who swapped his wife's pills with laxatives isn't someone I recognized. But maybe that's who I needed to become in that situation. Maybe sometimes you have to get a little dark to survive someone else's darkness. A few months after the divorce was final, I ran into one of Rachel's old coworkers at a coffee shop. Sarah, I think her name was. She recognized me and came over to say hi, asked how I was doing. I'm good, I told her honestly. Better than I've been in a while. That's great to hear, she said. And there was this awkward pause before she added, I heard Rachel left the company. Oh yeah? Yeah, she took a position somewhere else. Probably for the best after, well, you know. After what? I asked, genuinely curious. Sarah looked uncomfortable. After the Seattle conference became kind of a thing in the office, people talked. Derek ended up getting transferred to a different branch. Huh, that's interesting. For what it's worth, I always liked you. I'm sorry things didn't work out. Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate that. After she left, I sat there with my coffee thinking about the fallout from everything. Rachel had lost her job, essentially, or at least had to leave it because of the embarrassment. Derek got shipped off to another branch, probably to contain the damage. And me, I got a divorce and some peace of mind and a pretty good revenge story. Was it worth it? The pain, the betrayal, the months of investigation and planning? I don't know. I didn't choose for any of this to happen. I just chose how to respond to it. And maybe my response was petty. Maybe it was cruel. Maybe it was justified. Probably some combination of all three. What I do know is this. I don't miss her. I thought I would, thought there'd be this huge void where she used to be. But instead, there's just space. Clean, quiet space that I can fill with whatever I want. New hobbies, new relationships, new experiences that don't involve suspicion or lies. I sleep better now, too. That dripping faucet that woke me up that night got fixed, and it hasn't dripped since. Almost like it was trying to tell me something, trying to wake me up to the leak that was really eliminating me. The leak in my marriage, the slow drain of trust and honesty that I'd been ignoring for too long. Sometimes late at night when the house is completely silent, I think about that moment under the sink. Finding those pills, feeling my world shift on its axis. It's weird how one small discovery can unravel everything. A pink plastic case the size of my palm, and suddenly 7 years of marriage were revealed as partially fiction. But I don't dwell on it. Can't move forward if you're always looking back. I'm building a new life now, one based on honesty and self-respect and the hard-won knowledge that I deserve better than someone who lies to my face. Tyler still jokes about the whole thing, calls me a psychological warfare expert, and threatens to hire me if he ever needs revenge consultation. I tell him I'm retired from the revenge business, that I've served my time, and now I'm focusing on being normal and boring and drama-free. But between you and me, if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change much. Maybe I'd confront her sooner, save myself some of the anxiety and sleepless nights. Maybe I'd have been more prepared for the emotional fallout of blowing up a marriage. But the laxatives, those stay. That was poetry. That was karma delivered via pharmaceutical intervention. That was me taking back power in a situation where I'd been rendered completely powerless. And yeah, maybe that makes me a bad person. Maybe it makes me vindictive or cruel or whatever other label people want to apply. But I'm okay with it. Because I'm also free. Free from the lying, the cheating, the constant undercurrent of wrongness that had been poisoning our relationship. I fixed the leak, both literally and metaphorically. Tightened what needed tightening, replaced what couldn't be repaired, and walked away from what was broken beyond fixing. The house doesn't drip anymore. Neither does my trust. I've sealed up those cracks, reinforced those walls, and built something stronger in place of what fell apart. Rachel tried to reach out a few times after the divorce was finalized, emails saying she was sorry, that she understood why I'd done what I'd done, that she hoped we could eventually be friends. I never responded to any of them. Some bridges are meant to stay burned. Some betrayals are too fundamental to forgive, let alone forget. Last I heard through the grapevine, she'd moved to another city for her new job. Started fresh somewhere that nobody knew about her failed marriage, or her conference disaster, or her affair that never quite happened. Good for her, honestly. I hope she figures out whatever was broken inside her that made cheating seem like a reasonable option. I hope she gets therapy and learns to be honest with her next partner. But that's not my problem anymore. My problems now are normal ones. Should I repaint the living room? Is it time to get a dog? What should I make for dinner? Problems that have solutions, that don't involve deceit or betrayal or swapping medications. And you know what the weirdest part is? I'm happy. Actually, genuinely happy for the first time in years. The weight of that relationship, of carrying around suspicion and doubt and lies, it was crushing me, and I didn't even fully realize it until it was gone. Now I wake up in the morning and I don't immediately check my phone to see if my partner's hiding something. I don't analyze every text message or scrutinize every late night at work. I don't live in a constant state of low-grade anxiety wondering if I'm being made a fool of. I just exist. Peacefully, quietly, honestly. And that's worth more than any marriage that was built on deception. So that's my story. The story of how a dripping faucet at 2 in the morning led to divorce papers by summer. How birth control pills exposed a lie and laxatives delivered justice. How the quietest betrayals create the loudest impacts. I'm not going to pretend I'm some hero in this story. I'm just a guy who got cheated on and decided to fight back in a petty, vindictive way before ending things. I'm not proud of everything I did, but I'm also not ashamed. It was what it was, and I handled it how I handled it. If there's a lesson in all of this, it's probably something about paying attention to the signs, the small inconsistencies, the little changes in behavior, the things that don't quite add up. Those leaks don't fix themselves. They just get worse until everything floods. I caught mine in time, grabbed my wrench, tightened what needed tightening, replaced what was broken, and walked away from what couldn't be salvaged. That's not revenge. That's just good maintenance.